Hey, #history listeners.
Hey, everybody.
This week we are discussing Chernobyl, and we wanted to share with you that this episode was written and recorded weeks before Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Having said that, we, of course, want to acknowledge what is going on in Ukraine, that we stand with Ukraine, and our hearts go out to the Ukrainian people.
We didn't feel it was right to just jump right into this episode without acknowledging what is going on right now and extending our thoughts and prayers to Ukraine.
We should also mention that because of Russia's invasion, there have actually been some very recent updates specific to Chernobyl. So we have added a little bit of information toward the end of this episode that was not originally in our script.
Thanks for listening.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is #history,
the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
This is #history, episode 93. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And it's kind of wild to me that we've made it all the way to episode 93 of a podcast where we cover history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption. Mm-hmm. And we're only just now covering Chernobyl.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. I think we've been failing at our jobs, right?
Not failing. We're just dragging our feet a little bit.
We're just dragging our feet. We got if our performance evaluation was, you could get up to 5, we got a 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still
passing. But now
we're at a 5.5.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how we do.
Yeah, you tell us.
It's pending a 5.5.
Yeah.
This week we are discussing the Chernobyl disaster, also known as the Chernobyl accident, also oftentimes simply referred to as just Chernobyl. This was an incident that occurred on April 26th, 1986 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant in Ukraine, where a test went disastrously wrong and resulted in a radioactive explosion. 2 people would die as a direct result of the explosion, with nearly 30 more people dying over the course of the next few months due to exposure to the radiation. What is particularly devastating about this incident in history was the lack of transparency and the cover-up attempt on the part of the Soviet Union. This would lead to radioactive contamination throughout the Soviet Union and Western Europe for some 10 days following the explosion. It is now estimated that upwards of 125,000 people died as a result of Chernobyl, having been exposed to radiation at levels nearly 400 times greater than those of the Hiroshima bombing. Chernobyl is considered to be the worst nuclear disaster in history. We are in for a doozy this week, as always. So before we dive into this week's topic, let's dive into a drink.
Yes, let's. All right. Huge shout out to our sister from another Mr. Podcast, Melissa from the Mimosa Sisterhood podcast.
Yay.
She sponsored 2 cocktails for us and left a very appropriate message saying, "Bottoms up, bitches."
If you haven't listened to the Mimosa Sisterhood podcast, be sure to do that. We've guested on 2 episodes, I think.
That sounds right, yeah.
And Melissa's fabulous. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah, she's great. So thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Today's cocktail is fittingly called the Nuclear Meltdown Cocktail in honor of one of the most infamous nuclear accidents in history. I found this particular recipe on cocktailbuilder.com, and boy, does it look a nuclear.
It does. It does. It is a very radioactive green.
Yeah. It's also pure alcohol. So,
radioactive in more than one sense.
Yes. And also not a small amount.
No, certainly not. It is an entire glass.
Yeah. So the Nuclear Meltdown contains gin, white rum, vodka, white tequila, sweet and sour mix, lemon lime soda, and melon liqueur.
And I want to just make one comment about the melon liqueur. I was being lazy and just ran to our local grocery store instead of going to Total Wine to purchase the melon liqueur. And so I ended up purchasing legit Midori.
Yeah.
Which was $25.
That's why I don't get, even though melon liqueur is so good, it's so expensive.
But when I go to like our liquor store, it's like $6, $7 for the same size bottle. And I actually think it tastes better.
The off-brand?
The off-brand tastes better because it's like faker and sweeter.
Yeah.
Because it's fake sugar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so just a comment about like sometimes going authentic or the most expensive. You don't need name brand. Going the most expensive route doesn't always mean it tastes better.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I love store brand everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I don't, there's nothing that I am like, I must buy the name brand.
No, absolutely not.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
I don't know.
I don't, there's something, it's the tequila. All the other things I think work well together.
I think you're totally right.
The tequila, even though it's white tequila, it's cheap white tequila. It stands out in a
sharp way that doesn't blend in with everything else.
Honestly, I think if this didn't have tequila in it, I would give it like a 8.
Yeah. What are you going to give it?
Like a 5 or 6?
I think I'm gonna go 6.5.
Okay, I'll go 6 then.
You can definitely taste the melon in it. It would taste better with the $6 melon here, but you can taste the melon in it, which I love.
We also didn't put as much soda in it because all of the liquor filled up so much of the glass that we couldn't actually put as much of the soda as the recipe calls for.
Maybe the tequila would have blended better if we had appropriate measurements. However, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
So the recipe, it's essentially like 1 part all of the alcohols, and then it's like, what is that, like 2.5 parts soda? Yeah. So 2.5 times soda, and it's definitely not, like, I think we did maybe like
2 ounces instead of
5.
the called for 5 ounces.
Yeah.
So maybe we shouldn't be judging it so harshly.
I could see it being good, which like just tasting like a soda, you know, a spiked soda if it was really soda-y.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's green.
It's green and I love that.
And I feel like we'll feel it.
I'm confident we'll feel it.
Okay. So it's doing its job.
You're right. Here we go. So before we begin this episode, I would be remiss to not rave about the HBO miniseries titled Chernobyl that came out in 2019. Have you seen it?
No. My husband watched it and he didn't recommend I watch it because of some very specific scenes that he was like, I don't think you would be okay with this. The dog. Something about a dog.
Yes. And I would still recommend you watch it because it's so good. But I know exactly what he's talking about. It's 5 episodes and there's one whole episode that very much talks about the way that the Chernobyl disaster affected animals. And it is a really, really devastating episode.
Maybe I'll skip that episode.
Yeah, just skip that episode entirely. You get the message. You get the picture.
Yeah. I mean, look what it's doing to humans who are like 12 times the size of a squirrel. So imagine how those squirrels are acting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great show. I highly recommend it. It won several awards and nominations. And while, of course, like any and every drama based on a historical event, there are some discrepancies. The series is overall praised for how historically accurate it is.
Yeah.
The writer of the show, Craig Mazin, spent approximately 5 years researching for the show, which included interviewing nuclear scientists and public citizens that were around at the time.
That's a long time.
It's a really long time. That's a lot of dedication to getting it right. I need
to watch it.
You do need to watch it, and you do need to have a bit of a strong stomach in order to do so, as you will also need in order to listen to our episode. One other thing that I'd like to mention before we dive all the way in, some of the events we cover on this podcast are so massive. They are so massive that you can't really do the full story justice without doing it in, say, a 6-part series. This is one of those topics. There's so much information here, and there are so many books and documentaries that have done such a fabulous job of really relaying all of those details. But assuming that you are here because you like our take on things and because you like that we do our best to condense heavy history topics into generally an hour or less, no guarantees with this episode, that you will understand that there is just no way that we can touch on every detail. But because this is such an important topic in history, and because I know there are a number of people out there that do know a lot about this incident, I just wanted to be straightforward about the fact that some things had to be condensed so that Leah and I are not still here talking about this a week from now. And as always, after listening to our take, if you find that you are super fascinated by the topic, I highly encourage you to consume some additional research. All right, let's dive in.
I'm ready.
We're going to start by backing it up and talking about some potentially boring stuff, like background and geography and why this nuclear plant even existed in the first place. So first things first, where is Chernobyl? Chernobyl is in Ukraine, a little more than 60 miles north of Kiev.
Or Kyiv.
Kyiv, yes. So in order to accommodate the workers at the Chernobyl plant and their families, a city named Pripyat was established on February 4th, 1970. Within 10 years of its establishment, the population of the city grew to nearly 50,000. To give you an idea of how close Pripyat was to Chernobyl, I've uploaded a picture here to check out, and it spells out the distance in this image, which I'm hoping you can read off for our listeners.
Okay, so it's literally a Google map, and it shows Pripyat, and then 1.2 miles away is the nuclear plant. So it's less, we could run there.
I'd be...
And we don't run very far, but you and I could run there.
I would struggle.
We would struggle.
But yes, we could get there. If I had to, I could. And to give perspective for today's story, Pripyat, nearly 40 years after the Chernobyl disaster occurred, continues to remain abandoned to this day.
If it's a mile away, which
yes.
I don't know what kilometers, we don't know. Sorry, anybody who lives outside of the United States.
Yeah.
But a mile is short.
It is short. If we can run it,
it's short.
Yeah. And this town was made exclusively for power plant workers and their families.
Yeah.
And as we'll get to towards the end of the episode, an exclusion zone was established because of how radioactive the area is.
Yeah.
The construction of the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl began in 1977, becoming the third Soviet RBMK nuclear power plant and the first to be constructed on Ukrainian land. And just in case anyone is unfamiliar with what exactly a nuclear power plant is and how it works, put really simply.
Oh, okay. I was like, are we going into nuclear science? And
we are. We're going into very, very watered down nuclear science. Here it is, really simple. A nuclear power plant, it's a station that produces electricity by using radioactive material to boil water, to produce steam, to spin turbines, to generate electricity. Got it? Great. In other words, it's just a really super fancy steam engine.
Yeah, and I also feel like wind turbines might just be easier unless it's doesn't get wind where they're at.
Sure, and there's a lot of benefits to a nuclear power plant as well.
Yeah.
The benefits of nuclear power is that it is certainly more cost efficient when compared to things like fossil fuel power plants. Additionally, it releases zero carbon emissions. The disadvantages, though, other than that, it takes a long time to construct a nuclear power plant and thus can get rather expensive, are primarily the fears regarding nuclear power.
Yeah.
Following a number of nuclear power plant disasters, many countries have chosen to phase out of using them completely. Some countries, such as Australia, Ireland, and Italy, have no nuclear power plants at all. The U.S. still generates roughly 20% of its electricity from nuclear power plants versus France that produces a whopping 70% of its electricity from nuclear power.
Yeah.
And just to make things fun and bring them a little closer to home, we actually, Leah and I, we live within 30 minutes of a decommissioned nuclear power plant in Rancho Seco.
Yeah.
It was decommissioned in 1989 after having its own cooling accident a handful of years prior.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I knew that it was decommissioned. I didn't know why.
I think it was decommissioned for a number of reasons, but that was certainly one of them. Nowadays, it's a recreational park where you can camp, which we have done. Yes, we also have swam in the water there. And yes, the water is brown and all the fish have 3 eyes.
Yeah.
Just kidding. It's an interesting campground.
I've never camped there. I've driven past it. Now, right near there, I don't know if it's right on the same land, but near there, there's an entire solar farm where it's just miles of solar panels now, which is really cool to see. But yeah, I've never camped there.
It's definitely kind of eerie. It's I obviously I was joking about the fish having 3 eyes, but no jokes about the water being brown. The water is kind of disgusting, and yes, I've swam in it. But it's just interesting. It's where you're camping, where you're swimming, you can see the
tubes or whatever they are.
The nuclear tubes. It's really Interesting. But to get back to Chernobyl, by 1983, there were 4 RBMK 1000 reactors there. It gets really nitty-gritty and scientific, but I think the easiest way to really quantify the level of power at Chernobyl is to understand that by the time all the reactors were up and running, they were producing approximately 10% of electricity to Ukraine. Wow. That's a lot of power.
And I've just recently learned how huge Ukraine is.
Yes. It is really big.
Pretty sure I remember hearing it's the biggest, like, European country. If you plop the map of Ukraine over, like, Central or, like, Western Europe, it, like, covers most of the countries.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It kind of surprises me, but doesn't crazy surprise me because Western Europe is small for having, like, so many major cities and everything. It's very small.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating. Amazingly, there were 2 more reactors currently in the works at the time of the Chernobyl disaster. They had hoped to one day get these additional 2 reactors up and running so that this power plant could generate even more electricity for the country. These 2 reactors, however, would never be completed as all hell was about to break loose on April 26th, 1986. At 1:23 a.m. in what should have been a simple routine test to ensure that the spinning generator would still produce electricity even after the reactor was shut down, something horrible happened. It's important to note that this routine test was actually supposed to be conducted the day prior on April 25th. The day shift crew did as they were supposed to and reduced the power level of the unit as required. By 1:06 p.m., they had brought the power level down by 50%. They even shut off the emergency core cooling system, again, as the test required. But by 2 p.m., a fellow local power station called into Chernobyl, telling them that their power station had randomly gone offline, and they requested that Chernobyl not reduce any of its power any further in an attempt to meet the power demands. And so this is exactly what they did.
Yeah.
This meant that the test that had been started by the day crew shift would be completed by another crew. The crew that came in after the day crew, the evening crew, would also not complete the test. It would end up being passed on to the night crew, which came in at midnight. And I mean, I'm sure none of us here can relate to that experience where the previous shift just leaves all the work for you to do when you clock in for your shift.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
Yes.
I worked in a coffee shop for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so. I was saying I worked in retail for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Hashtag relatable.
Yeah.
Now, even though the test had been postponed by the day crew, they never turned the emergency cooling system back on. And it is really important to note that this particular oversight did not actually have a direct impact on what would later happen. But I mention this simply to draw light to the lack of attention that this crew was showing over the course of this whole debacle. They left a reactor running for some 11 hours without the emergency core cooling system. And this is a huge, huge no-no.
I mean, I don't even know anything about nuclear whatever. Fission, fusion, whatever's happening here.
Yeah. You can understand that that's bad.
But I know that that's bad.
Yeah.
There's something called an emergency core cooling system, and I think it should be turned on.
Certainly not turned off for 11 hours while the nuclear whatevers are still doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shortly after 11 p.m., the evening crew was getting ready to switch out to the night crew. Again, it gets incredibly complicated and nitty-gritty, and the goal here is to keep this all fairly simple. What I'm about to give you is the incredibly simplified version of what happened.
I'm ready.
So simplified. And still so complicated.
Oh, no.
In order to conduct this test, it required that the reactor power be brought down slowly to a thermal level of somewhere between 700 and 1,000 megawatts.
Mega what?
You're hilarious. Mega what? They were able to reach 720 megawatt 5 minutes into April 26th, and they removed the majority of the control rods from the core. Due to a number of factors, the power continued to decrease, reaching 500 megawatt. The operators switched the power control into a different mode to get the power levels back up to where they needed to be, but instead, the power decreased at a rapid rate, bringing the megawatt down to less than 30.
Yikes.
We still, to this day, do not know what happened to make the power drop so rapidly. And the reason that we don't know this is because the only people that can speak to it, the direct eyewitnesses to this event, would die within the next few days due to high-level radiation exposure. This episode was brought to you by Audible. Audible is the leading provider in spoken word entertainment and audiobooks. They have titles ranging from news, self-development, business, fiction, and more. Not only do they have audiobooks, but they also have podcasts, wellness guidance programs, and more. The best thing about Audible is that you can download titles to listen to offline, anytime, anywhere, across all devices without losing your spot. And Audible has thousands of titles for you to choose from. Maybe pick one of my most recent favorites, titled The Betrayal of Anne Frank, a cold case investigation written by Rosemary Sullivan. If you would like to try out a free 30-day trial, you can do that right now using our link at www.audibletrial.com/#history. That's www.audibletrial.com/#history. The power continued to fluctuate, and at 1:23 a.m., the pressure built up so much in reactor number 4 that the steam took the upper plate, also known as the upper biological shield, off of the reactor. This explosion was so large that when the upper biological shield was blown off, the ensuing explosion blew through the roof of the building, and radioactive material, debris, and radiation in general were released.
Yikes.
The coolant lines were destroyed, and any remaining coolant instantly turned to steam, resulting in a total loss of water.
I'm so sorry. I'm about to do a different kind of nerd out right now. Like one of the Wolverine movies, like the ending
I won't know
scene,
at all what you're talking about.
I know.
I watched the first one.
The ending scene takes place on top of a nuclear reactor with him and a shitty version of Deadpool.
Okay.
And it's just, I just keep envisioning them shirtless fighting on top of the nuclear reactor.
You imagine Hugh Jackman
or whatever
right now?
Yeah.
Not a bad thing to imagine.
And Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, not a bad thing to imagine.
His mouth taped shut or something, sewed shut. It's dumb.
That's weird and gross. I don't know what you're talking about, but I enjoy the...
shirtless visions?
Yeah, I enjoy the vision.
Makes it a little easier to stomach this?
Yes. Okay. Very much so, yes. Only seconds later, there was a second explosion, which started a fire at reactor number 3. Typically, there were safety procedures in place for when an emergency such as a fire began, but as you will recall, the shutdown of emergency systems was required in order to operate this particular test. This fire explosion further spread radioactive material and debris. Some of this debris, which included graphite blocks, went through the ceiling and landed on top of the building, where they too ignited a fire. 2 workers at the plant would die as a result of the explosion. As you can imagine, plant workers responding to this unpredictable situation had differing opinions on what they should do. Some wanted to shut down the number 3 reactor right away in order to protect its cooling systems, but the chief engineer, Nikolai Fomin, refused to let them do that. Instead, he supplied his men with respirators and potassium iodide tablets that those tablets, they reduce the amount of radioactive iodide that enters the body, and he forced them to keep working. They continued to do this until 5 a.m. when the chief of the night shift, Yuri Bagdazarov, said, "F this," and shut the reactor down on his own.
Yeah, I thank you, Yuri, because I would have walked out on that.
And if you watch the HBO series, it's really intense. You'll see that there's a lot of internal conflict of what they're supposed to do, and people making bad decisions, not caring about the lives of the workers at this plant.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are definitely some people that understand the risk and what can actually happen, but I'm sure there's also people that don't. They're just, that's their job. They're the janitor.
Totally.
They don't know how much at risk they are.
Totally. Yeah, you have some people in this plant that study nuclear power.
This is their job.
This is literally their job. They're engineers, they're scientists.
Yeah.
And there are also other people there that maybe don't know to the extent, how bad this thing could be.
Yeah. So if my boss tells me do this or you're fired, and I don't know the risks that I'm taking.
Even if you know the risks you're taking, is there a certain level of
oh, totally.
I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to disrupt this situation.
And also an understanding or wishful thinking that the people that know what's going on would not kill me, would not intentionally kill me.
Right. placing faith in authority that your life is more important.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after the explosion that firefighters arrived at the scene in an attempt to obviously put the fires out. That's what firefighters do. Other than rescue cats from trees, they they show up at locations to put fires out.
Yeah, that's their job.
Yeah, I don't really know why I wrote that. Okay. These firefighters were never The firefighters arrived at the scene to put the fire out. It's even worse than that. I said in an attempt to put the fire out.
They're not even good at their job. They just try
to do it. Yep. These firefighters were never verbally told what exactly had caused the fire. They were never told that they were putting out anything more than a standard fire. This kind of goes back to what you were just saying. Mm-hmm. For many of them, they didn't realize that they were breathing in radioactive material and maneuvering around graphite on the ground. For others, they say they always knew it was a radioactive fire and that they were, in the words of firefighter Anatoly Zakharov, quote, like kamikaze, unquote, knowing that what they were doing could very well kill them, but that it was their civic duty to perform. I think exactly going back to what you said is like, if you're a firefighter and maybe you don't necessarily know, I mean, you know, this is a nuclear power plant, but maybe you don't know that it's anything more than a standard fire. And for other people, it's kind of like,
well, duh, we should assume that.
We're responding to a fire at a nuclear power plant. So I'm going to assume. Yeah, exactly. Some of the firefighters that were later interviewed for the CBC documentary series called Witness, they actually described the air as, quote, tasting like metal.
That's not a good sign.
No, not a good sign. With others reporting the feeling of pins and needles all over their faces. Isn't that so crazy? It's just something that I can't even imagine is like responding to a scene and instantly feeling like pins and needles in your face.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like it.
Between the hundreds of firefighters and pilots and the millions of pounds of water, clay, sand, and neutron-absorbing boron, the majority of the fires were put out that same day. That is, other than the fire at reactor number 4, the reactor where this whole event began, this fire would continue to burn for another 2 weeks.
No.
Bye.
Bye.
Many of these firefighters would later die as a result of the acute radiation they endured. So, what about the nearby residents? Were they immediately told about the dangers? Of course not.
Why would they be?
Why would they be? As you will recall, the city of Pripyat had been specifically established to house the workers and families of Chernobyl. So it was only, a couple miles outside of the nuclear power plant. Many of the residents stood outside their homes in the early morning hours of April 26th to watch the fires as they blazed. A handful of people even reported seeing a beautiful blue beam of light shining from the roof of the plant, not knowing that this blue light was the result of ionization. I actually have a drawing of it. It's not a picture, but I have a drawing of what that looked like at the time.
Yeah. So there's buildings in the distance. It's like dark, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see the outline, the silhouette of a building. There's a huge plume of fire shooting up from it. And then on top of that, shooting straight up into the sky is like a blue light, like a spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really eerie.
That's eerie and weird.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to make of that.
No. And I think a lot of people didn't. It wasn't long, though, before people within the city of Pripyat, they started feeling sick. The people of Pripyat reported having horrible headaches, severe vomiting, and an overall taste of metal in their mouths. When Ukraine's Minister of Internal Affairs called the chairwoman for the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, he barely even mentioned the incident at Chernobyl to her. He added it in as a passing comment toward the end of their conversation, to which the chairman was, of course, like, what? Come again? Are the people of Pripyat okay? To which the minister was like, yeah, of course, they're fine. It's a Saturday. People are going to weddings and they're gardening and they're fishing. Just relax. Now, yeah, granted, I of course took a few liberties when relaying that conversation.
Oh, that wasn't word for word?
No, not word for word.
Okay.
But that was essentially how the conversation went. The minister really did tell the chairwoman not to worry about it and that people were going about their Saturday activities, so they were obviously fine. Mm-hmm. To which I would argue, of course they were going about their normal Saturday activities. Did you tell them that they should be otherwise alarmed or concerned?
Yeah.
It's a Saturday. Yeah, I have a wedding to go to.
So I feel a little nauseous and my skin feels prickly, but...
My skin is prickling. But yes.
And, melting off, but it's fine.
Because, like...
No, I know.
I know you know, but it's like, you would assume, similar to what you just said, like placing faith in authority, you would assume that your government would tell you if there was reason to be concerned.
I think if you've learned anything on #history, you shouldn't assume that.
No, if your face feels prickly, run.
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 Run for the hills.
If we have taught you anything, it's that if your face is prickly, don't stay where you're at.
No. Run.
Go.
Go away. Mm-hmm. Far, far away.
That's good. That's good advice. Wow. We're good
Yeah.
at this. We're so good at this.
We're so good. We're teaching so many people so many things.
We're so smart. It wouldn't be until the following day, more than 24 hours later, aka more than 24 hours of breathing in radioactive materials, that the city of Pripyat would officially be ordered to be evacuated. Initially, the residents were told they would only be away for a few days while officials cleaned up the fire at the nuclear plant. In response to this, residents took very few of their belongings with them. They would not realize at the time that for many of them, they would never, ever return.
That reminds me of like, if I've never gone personally, but if you go to the Salton Sea in like Southern California, very similar. It wasn't a nuclear disaster. It was like some other just like natural.
Yeah.
Like it just like dried up or something happened there. But it's like people left everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's just like houses with their shoes are still in, and their shoes and their purses and their clothes are all just
eggs on the stove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy because when I hear this, I think, you know, if my government is telling me, don't be alarmed. It's nothing crazy, but we do actually need you to evacuate just for a short period of time. What am I taking? I'm taking a couple changes of clothing, some underwear, my passport maybe. Am I bringing my wedding photos with me? No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
Am I bringing, trinkets that, things that really matter to me, sentimental things. I'm not bringing those with me, and those are going to be devastating to lose.
Yeah, this makes me think of like fires in California right now.
Yeah.
Or like even like fire drills. They say leave everything and just come. Like I'm not taking everything I own that's important to me with me.
And that is something maybe to acknowledge is like at the end of the day, your life and the life of those that you love is the most important thing.
Yeah,
but,
objects or not.
Yeah, but are your wedding photos really, really sentimental?
Totally.
Of course they are.
Well, and like,
I'm not grabbing that at like if it's
birth certificates.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like not even sentimental things that
vital records,
things that are really important. Your social security card, all these things. I don't know that I would know to bring that if they said you'll only be gone a couple days.
That honestly is not what I would bring. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is like underwear. Seriously, just like toothpaste, my skincare, my makeup, and the skincare routine that I love so much.
Yeah,
my hairbrush. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Horrible. By the very next day, authorities had extended this evacuation zone another 6 miles. And in the days following that evacuation, authorities made the decision to expand the evacuation order to nearly 20 miles.
That's like how far away are you from me?
So yeah, actually, now that you put that in perspective.
Think of granted, I know that it wasn't as populated as the Sacramento area, but like think about how many people live between you and I and how big of a place that is.
Wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's crazy perspective. The commission that had been put together to investigate what had happened at Chernobyl was very much aware that there had been extreme radiation exposure and that there were, in addition to the 2 people that died at impact, more than 50 people in the hospital for various radiation exposure illnesses. And yet, they made 0 public announcements about it. There was a total lack of transparency and even further than that, an attempt at a cover-up by the Soviet Union. They had evacuated some 100,000 people before they finally made an official announcement about the disaster that had happened at Chernobyl. That's wild.
Yeah.
Even worse than that, it appears as though they may have never admitted the full extent of the damage had they not been caught. On April 28th, so this is 2 days after the incident, a Swedish radiation monitoring station picked up abnormally high levels of radiation, levels that were greater than 40% what they normally were. The workers at the Swedish Radiation Monitoring Station reported these radiation levels to the Swedish Radiation Safety Authority, who were able to confirm that the radiation was coming from the Soviet Union, and they confronted them about it. Even when faced with this confrontation, the Soviet Union still continued to gaslight and say they didn't know what they were talking about. In response, the Swedish government was like, cool. So then you don't mind if we file a report about this with the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Yeah.
This is what finally got the Soviets talking.
Yeah.
But as we already know, they still were not forthcoming. Initially, they lied and said that there had only been a small accident at the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl. It wouldn't be until 9 p.m. on April 28th that the Soviet Union would make their first official announcement about the incident.
And this is like 4 days later?
This is 2 days later.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
2 full days later where
Yeah.
they have already evacuated some 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's
That's a lot of people.
They have evacuated a 20-mile radius.
That's like an entire high school in California.
That is the entire graduating class of 2022. It's so funny that you say that because it's so funny when we talk with other people that are like, wow, my graduating class was like 100 people. It's like, in Sacramento, you're like one of 5,000,
Yeah.
right? How many were you?
Oof. It maybe wasn't that much, but it was like, I think it was about 1,000.
I was saying, we rent out entire convention halls. Crazy.
Cuckoo.
Welcome to Sacramento.
Yeah. California, really.
I love our state, but oh my God.
but
Oh my God. So again, it wouldn't be till 9 p.m. 2 days later on April 28th that the Soviet Union would make their first official announcement about the incident. They gave this like super thorough, super detailed, super helpful announcement, which was broadcast on a television news program that I'm hoping you can read for our listeners, Leah.
Sure. There has been an accident at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. One of the nuclear reactors was damaged. The effects of the accident are being remedied. Assistance has been provided for any affected people. An investigative commission has been set up.
Yep, that's it. Literally your most generic statement that you can make, right? Like when you're caught and you can't deny anymore, you're like, there was a disaster. We are fixing it. Don't worry about it.
F off.
And you can kindly f off. That's essentially what they're saying, right?
Yep.
So, thanks for that,
Thanks.
I guess. To make matters worse, there was a parade planned for May 1st in honor of May Day, and the Soviets decided there was no harm in continuing this event, even as there were currently radioactive particles floating through the air.
Oh my gosh.
Despite many not having adequate protective gear, hundreds of thousands were ordered to contain the nuclear power plant site and to clear the debris. And within 10 days of the incident, they were roughly able to do so. But let's discuss the damage over the course of those 10 days. The radioactive substances released into the air were carried by wind, meaning that it reached beyond Ukraine and into Belarus, Scandinavia, Russia, and various other parts of Europe like France and Italy. It is estimated that anywhere between 50 and 185 million units of radioactive substances, including iodine-131, plutonium, and strontium-90, and cesium-137, were out in the air for some 10 days. These radioactive substances destroyed millions of acres of land.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Millions. For years following the Chernobyl disaster, livestock in the area would be born with deformities. We know of at least 2 that died as a direct result of the explosion and another 30 or more that died over the course of the next few weeks, which included the firefighters, employees of the plant, and other first responders. Within the next few years, it is estimated that approximately 5,000 more died as a result of the radiation and exposure. And at its max, it is estimated that upwards of 125,000 people died in some way as a result of Chernobyl. In order to prevent any further contamination through wind or rainfall, a plan was put together to essentially seal the damaged reactor in a shelter. This shelter was called the sarcophagus, and a crew of people started constructing it in June 1986, a little over a month after the horrendous disaster. For 206 days, this crew worked tirelessly to create this steel and cement sarcophagus over the reactor. As you can imagine, these working conditions were incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, they better be paying them a lot of money. Were they?
I was watching your face for the sarcasm. One member of the crew later told BBC that, quote, "We worked in 3 shifts, but only for 5 to 7 minutes at a time because of the danger.
Ugh.
After finishing, we throw our clothes in the garbage," unquote. In 2016, yet another sarcophagus was constructed and placed over the already existing sarcophagus for better protection. It is estimated that this new structure will contain the radioactive substances for 100 years. The overall cleanup of this area, it would end up taking 7 months to complete. During the cleanup, one particular remnant of the Chernobyl disaster was discovered. It has been named Elephant's Foot, as it is a giant mass of melted radioactive nuclear fuel mixed with concrete and sand that actually very much resembles an elephant's foot. I have a picture here for you to look at.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it looks like an elephant's foot, right?
Like, minus the toenails, yeah.
No toenails spotted.
They were burned off.
Jeez. This elephant has had a pedicure.
Yeah. File down.
But yeah, it does kind of look like an elephant's foot, right?
Yeah.
This mass was discovered in the basement of reactor number 4, and it emitted so much radiation in the 1980s that it could kill a person that was 3 feet away from it in a matter of 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
That's terrifying. The International Atomic Energy Agency conducted a formal investigation in 1985 to determine what exactly had happened at Chernobyl and who was at fault. In 1986, they released a report in which they determined that the primary reason for the disaster had been the operators' actions, poor decision-making, and violations of operational rules and procedures. However, in 1992, a revised report would be released in which it was determined that the primary reason for the disaster had actually been the design of the reactor. And I think most people believe now that the truth just lies somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
In July of 1987, a criminal trial would take place in which 5 employees of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, which included the plant director, chief engineer, and shift director, were all sentenced to anywhere from 2 to 10 years in labor camps for their part in the disaster. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, an exclusion zone around the site was established. This zone is 770 miles wide and is not to be inhabited by humans or plants, as it is still considered dangerous.
Like, what, do they pick every daisy that grows in the area?
I think what they mean is, like, don't go and live there or plant things there, and then feed those bell peppers that you planted there. Don't feed those to people.
Got it. Okay.
In fact, authorities have said that this zone will not be safe to be inhabited by humans for at least another 24,000 years.
Let's talk about, well, we don't need to talk about it. Let's just take a moment. 24,000 years.
24,000 years. Interestingly, the animal population is like kind of thriving there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, obviously the radiation exposure is really bad for them. It's like boars and wolves and bison that live there. Mm-hmm. But not having humans around destroying their habitats have actually allowed animals here the opportunity to flourish.
You know, they might have 2 heads, but it's fine.
They might have 2 heads, but they're living to at least 800 years.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Both of those mouths are fed.
I feel like that's the funniest thing you've ever said. It wouldn't be until 2000 that the last working reactors would officially be decommissioned at Chernobyl and the plant would officially be shut down. Nowadays, you can tour Chernobyl for a limited period of time or get a permit, again, for a limited period of time, to conduct studies there. In more recent years, a Ukrainian-German company has actually revamped some of the land within the exclusion zone to create what is now one of the world's largest solar power plants, generating roughly a third of the electricity that the Chernobyl nuclear plant once did. The name of this solar power company? It's called Solar Chernobyl. Like we mentioned at the top of the episode, given the most recent updates regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there have actually been some recent updates specific to Chernobyl. On February 24th, 2022, Russia seized control of Chernobyl. You may ask why they would be interested in this unoccupied land. According to military analysts, given that Chernobyl is essentially a ghost town, it made for a relatively easy pathway from Belarus into Kiev. However, the heavy military machinery rolling through the exclusion zone has stirred up the soil and has caused radiation levels to spike, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. At the time of this recording, the agency says that there is currently no imminent radioactive threat to Ukraine, but that is, of course, imperative that the Chernobyl exclusion zone not be further disturbed, as this could lead to a very, very serious problem, not only for Ukraine, but for all of Europe. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of #History.
We will share the pictures that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram and all sources used to put together. The episode can be found on our website at #history-pod.com.
Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use. Share about us with your family and friends. And then we would love it so much if you gave us a rate and review.
Hey, and are you on social media? Because
we all are.
We are.
Everyone is.
Be sure to check us out on Instagram. We're at #history_podcast. And we also have a TikTok, so check us out on there at #history, all one word.
And come join us over on Patreon. For only $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. You also get access to behind-the-scenes content, weekly #hangout episodes, an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers.
Lots of good stuff.
All the good stuff.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Why this nuclear pants? These nuclear pants.
These nuclear pants. It's the newest fashion.
Betches.
This basic bitch.
That is so perfect.
She just picked her nose.
It was so itchy. I was trying to make it all the way through that. Ooh. The pressure built up so much in radioactor number 4.
Radiactor?
Yep. Radiactor.
That's what it sounded like.
No, that is what I said.
Okay.
Radiactor. I don't even know where the that comes from. The pressure built up so much and I almost did it again. 2 workers at
the plant.
I was trying to channel my Anna Delvey there. Some wanted to shut down the number 3 I almost said radioactor. I don't know where that's coming from. Number 3 reactor. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to channel. Neutron absorbing boron. The
Bourbon?
Boron. Oh my god.
Bourbon.
The neutron absorbing bourbon. I wish I had said that. Look. Oh, never mind.
Oh.
I had something on my screen and I thought I spelled something. I was like, look at how I spelled Chernobyl, but it was literally, I had like dirt on my screen and I couldn't see. Oh my god. That was, I assumed that was like a finger crack.
No, it was my like
Oh
shoulder.
my god.
That was weird.
That was classic.
That is so
Basic bitch.
You basic bitch.
Oh my god, your accent is so good. It is estimated that this new structure will contain the radioactive substance. Starting over. I'm not tipsy. I think that's the funniest thing you have ever said. I'm going to burst. Oh my god, both of those mouths are fed.
Been to the year
2000. Nowadays, you can tour Chernobyl for... Moving on. Both of those mouths were... I'm literally going to make me pee my pants.